Denver's hottest March temperatures just keep getting hotter. The city set a new record today after reaching 87 degrees out at the airport. It is our fifth record in just 7 days. We're glad you're with us here at 10 o'clock. I'm Alexandra Lewis.
And I'm Phil Lipoff. We are running out of ways to say this, but it's just weird to have this kind of weather this time of year. So we're going to bring in 9 News Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin to do it for us. So you say it, Kathy.
Thank you. I know I need to come up with a new word, right? We have calm, quiet conditions out there after a record-setting day yet again. This was the warmest temperature we've ever seen in March this time of year, breaking the old record of 75 and running way above the average of 59 degrees. But you made it through the warmest day of the week. We've had 6 days with 80 degrees or better, very unusual for this point in the season. And look at this. Here we are, 10 o'clock at night, temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Again, average temperatures in the afternoons are in the 50s this time of year. Watching the wind forecast pretty closely, elevated fire danger, something we'll be talking about tomorrow with a red flag warning, a fire weather watch out. There's a front coming in, so the ridge that's been centered right over the top of Colorado is shifting to the east. That will allow in for some moisture, and that means not only a slight cooling trend tomorrow, but the chance of a few passing showers, which would be amazing. So tonight, mild and dry. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about the critical fire weather forecast, but a cooler temperature trend is on the way in the short term, and maybe some rain and snow for the state.
Today, Denver Water became the latest utility across the Front Range to approve mandatory water restrictions. It follows Erie and Thornton, and Aurora could be next.
Tonight, we are learning more about how the new limits on watering will be enforced. 9 News reporter Ria Jha joins us now with some more detail on that. Ria.
Yeah, and in a worst case scenario, water could even be shut off in towns like Erie and Aurora, but that would be after multiple warnings and violations. But that's all to say that water departments want you to know that they are taking this very seriously this year. A winter that never really showed up.
We are seeing the worst snowpack in about 50 years of records.
Is now shaping how much water we have.
We're not going to be able to replenish our water supplies the way we typically would on a year where we would have average snowfall.
Shawnee Klein with Aurora Water says the change starts with stricter rules on how and when you can use water.
Our stage 1 water shortage plan calls for basically restrictions that would take us down to 2 days a week of watering.
Yeah.
Todd Hartman with Denver Water says they too are asking residents to reduce water use by 20%.
That's how serious the situation here in Colorado and in the Front Range is. There will be enforcement. There will be fines.
In Aurora,
And the first violation is a warning. If they fail to correct that violation, they have reoccurring violations. There is an escalating fine. It starts at $125 for a fine, and it goes up from there. Service interruption is a possibility, so we really want people to comply.
and Aurora Water will notice they're using an AMI meter that tracks all water meters on their system.
So we can see data all the way down into 15-minute intervals. And what we'll do is we get alerts when there's unusual water usage.
Residents can use it too.
They can go into our online billing portal and they can actually register for leak alerts or actually even consumption alerts.
Crews will also be out patrolling neighborhoods in both Denver and Aurora. But Shawnee doesn't want you calling them water police.
We are not water police. They're water monitors, and they are very nice people. So please be nice to them.
At the end of the day, what you save helps preserve what everyone depends on.
2026 is going to be the year where Coloradans really start to learn the value of water, because it is a very precious commodity in this state and throughout the Southwest.
A lot of this has to do with sprinklers and irrigation systems, so obviously it's not the season for that yet, even though it does feel like it. But Denver and Aurora will have information on their websites on a schedule and what days and hours you will be able to use those water systems. Reporting live in Denver, Ria Jha, 9 News.
The Broncos have agreed to pay nearly $46 million for Burnham Yard. That's the old rail yard where they've said they'd prefer to build their new stadium. Now, according to our partners at the Denver Business Journal, the purchase price for Burnham Yard is a few million less than what the state paid for the land back in 2021. However, that price is equal to the remaining principal on the state's loan. The Denver Business Journal reports the state spent millions more on a study maintenance, security, and the demolition of a few buildings. The Broncos say they will not ask for any new taxes to fund their new stadium, but voters did approve funding for infrastructure projects in the area. There's a plan to turn 2 downtown office towers into housing and businesses. The Denver Downtown Development Authority made the announcement tonight about the so-called High Fidelity Plaza project. The plan is to convert 1 million square feet of office space along 17th Street into 700 apartment units. The project would also include a bodega, coffee shop, children's museum, child care center, and bookstore. The Downtown Development Authority approved a loan of up to $63 million to help with the project. The whole thing is expected to cost $315 million.
Leaders in Weld County are considering zoning changes to allow data centers in certain areas. The proposal comes after Global AI bought roughly 500 acres on the western edge of Greeley. Republican County Commissioner Jason Maxey says no formal applications for a data center project have been submitted to the county, but the proposed zoning changes would be sort of a proactive step. Community members are already voicing concerns.
So we're really asking that there is a pause in the change of the ordinance so that we can really understand not just the economic impacts, but the impacts to the environment.
There was the concern that they felt that this ordinance was being rushed through the process and wasn't being fully vetted. And so we heard those concerns. We appreciate the public outreach and dialogue, and we're considering all those factors that we heard.
Commissioners will hold their final vote, we're told, on the proposed zoning change April 6th.
One of Colorado's newest alert systems has quickly become the most used. The Missing Indigenous Persons Alert, or the MIPA, was created back in 2022. In 2025, 67 were issued, the most of any statewide alert. The current 2026 data is on trend to issue even more than that. Advocates believe the increase could be for a few reasons. One being more awareness that it's a tool law enforcement can now use.
More than one Native person goes missing a week in the state of Colorado. Now we have the validation that it is a problem, and so now it's that extra ask of how do we fix this?
Advocates say there is still work to do in educating law enforcement to issue alerts faster and more clearly. They say alerts don't always include the person's tribal affiliation. That information could help with policy and locating the person.
Aurora could become the latest city across the Front Range to place restrictions on where new gas stations can be built. Right now, the city allows gas stations on 2 of the 4 corners of any given intersection. The next closest one has to be more than 500 feet away. City council members talked about the possibility of creating some new restrictions on where they can be built during a committee meeting today.
We wanted to look at a way that we could potentially just sort of rein it in a little bit so that we don't have gas stations on every single corner.
Louisville, Lakewood, and Denver all have limits on where new gas stations can be built. Nothing was decided in Aurora today. City council members are still looking at what restrictions they could vote on. North Denver has long been home to a community formed by Italian immigrants.
Now there's a push to make sure that history isn't forgotten. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez joins us from an area that some hope will become the Little Italy Historic District. Good night, Colton.
Yeah, hello. Good evening. Good night. Yeah, Italian immigrants, they've been a part of Colorado's story since the 1850s, and many of them putting down roots right here in North Denver. And for many of the people who call this neighborhood home, they want to show people why that story shouldn't be forgotten. It takes little time to find Italian culture in Denver.
The Italian immigrants started east of here.
You just have to know where to look.
When they started to make money and they started to have better lives, they moved this way.
Today, that area in North Denver is known to some as Little Italy.
My grandmother lived a couple blocks that way, east of here. And we were at her house all the time, every week for Sunday spaghetti, Mass here at Mount Carmel since I was 7. It's home to me, it's home.
Crystal Pecho wants to make this community easier to find by creating the Little Italy Historic District.
It will help preserve the buildings that are designated within that district.
She's working to designate other historic landmarks just like Mount Carmel Church.
And then hopefully going forward, if that thematic district can help with how things get built and how they look in the area, that's just frosting on the cake.
The committee driving this effort says so far 50 locations are eligible for this historic district, like Gaetano's restaurant and Potenza Lodge.
You had to be from a certain area of Italy to join this lodge, either from Potenza, a town inside of the region of Basilicata, or from the Basilicata region.
Dominic Arcetta says it's about preserving the stories of this community.
Being surrounded by this area in North Denver, my great-grandfather helped build this building.
The historic district would give this community something it's never had before, a marker on the map.
I'd say a step forward for recognition and just the ability to be like, hey, wow, this is here in our city, we have this.
And for those who grew up in its streets, the district means something more personal than a historic designation.
It's part of who I am. Mia familia, my family. That's what Denver and the Italian heritage here means to me.
And right now, that committee, what they're asking is for the community's help identifying any of these other locations in the neighborhood that they could see as a historical landmark. Now, we have a link on our website at 9news.com if you'd like to connect with them. Live in Denver tonight, Colton Chavez, 9 News.